Good morning to everybody. Hope you're doing great on the morning Devo with Bo O. Today's a great day, and it's a day of my friend's birthday. I have a friend who has a B day today, so I'm pretty excited about that. Happy birthday to my friend out there, and you might know him. His name's Scott. So, happy birthday, brother. He's what, whopping 32 years old or something. So awesome. Hey, you could check out the Devos always at the archives right there at the YouTube channel. That's going to scroll over here. As you can see down, where is it? Be right there. There's the Old Testament book of Habakkuk that we are in today. We're going to go over a little bit of an intro, but chapter 1. So we're starting a new book, Habakkuk. How about that? We're going to jump to the Old Testament, then we'll get into Colossians next. So we'll Philippians, Colossians, we'll get right in there in the flow of the New Testament again. But I thought, hey, someone wanted to go through this book, and I thought, man, what a cool book to go over. It's really neat. It's short. It's a really short book. And Habakkuk wrote during a time of kind of national upheaval in Israel, you could say. The country was in constant threat by other nations that surrounded her. And really, the Babylonians was that kingdom that was kind of up and rising. Maybe the land, you might know it as the land of Iraq. And the Babylonians, yeah, that's the land of Iraq today. And that nation's very close to Israel. So that nation was bearing down on the country of Israel, and there were prophets that were raised up in Israel, and that was these people that had a word from God for the people of Israel. Now, one of the things that we get from these books called the prophets is it presumes a couple things, and I just want to tell you what it presumes right off the bat. Hey Zeus, you think Scott is still 30? Yeah, me too. But this is what these books presume. So when you read Isaiah, Ezekiel, Habakkuk, Nahum, Zephaniah, Zechariah, Malachi, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, those books, it presumes God. That's one of the things that's already presumed in the writing, that there is a God. And so that's all kind of in the framework of the literature. Also, it presumes the idea of objective truth, that there is a actually objective right and there's an objective wrong. And those are also presumed in the writings. Now, the reason why this is important is because most of the prophets, if not all of the prophets, off the top of my head, when I'm thinking about it, they all are talking about problems, things that are wrong with the nation of Israel, or what's wrong with other nations that are Israel's enemies. And so it presumes there's a right and there's a wrong. And so that is always how we should look at these passages or these books, is that it's presuming God exists, and it's presuming that there is a right and a wrong, meaning there is a truth. There is a truth. It's not about what you think or how you look at things or how you identify or how your experience is or your thoughts per se. It's about what is true. And that's how these books come across. And so Habakkuk prophesied it up until what is called the Babylonian captivity. So if Israel was brought taken captive by Babylon, and Babylon had different stages where they would take people of Israel or of the nation, and specifically Judah, and take them off into captivity. And so, anyway, I hope that's a little bit of a background. I don't want to go too into it, but the themes of the book are pretty cool. I mean, Habakkuk talks about struggle and doubt in this book. We talk about God's sovereignty in this book, that there is a truth and God is sovereign and he's in control. Even though there's political upheaval and even though there's social unrest, and even though it seems like people have gone really away from maybe the presuppositions that there is a God and that there is truth, people have moved away from that. And now they're believing their own truth. This is true to me, that kind of idea. And so there, but it's the idea of that. Hey, even above that, God is sovereign. Um, and then there's an idea, a theme of hope as well in this book. A very cool um, ending to this book. So let's get into it. It's the Devo. We want to focus on how we can walk better with the Lord today. So it says, "This is the message that came to the prophet Habakkuk. In a vision from God, O Lord, how long must I call for help before you will listen? I shout to you in vain. There is no answer." Now, this is something that's very kind of familiar if you've read the Old Testament. I'm going to read some other passages, but in the book of Isaiah, it says, "Truly you are a God who has been hiding himself, the God and Savior of Israel." That's Isaiah 45:15. Psalm 44:24 says, "Why do you hide your face and forget our affliction and oppression, God?" Isaiah 1:15 says, "When you spread out your hands in prayer, I will hide." This is God speaking to the people. "When you spread out your hands in prayer, I will hide my eyes from you. Even though you multiply your prayers, I will not listen, for your hands are covered with blood." Isaiah 8:17 says, "I will wait for the Lord who is hiding his face." Now, this is the interesting thing about these passages and what we see in Habakkuk. Why do you hide? Why don't you listen? When are you going to bring justice? When are you going to answer our prayers, for righteousness to finally come upon the earth? And this is a big cry in all of our day as well. When is things going to be made right? When are you going to deal justly with people that are falsed out kind of ideas, right? And this idea of when is divine justice going to take place? Do you hear anything that we're saying? Well, the Bible says that God is a God in these through the prophets that hides himself. Now, some people now go, "Wow, what does that mean? I mean, what does that mean, God hides himself?" Well, this is kind of what it means. Some people have taken that to mean, oh, there really is no God. He's just distant, and we just believe in a God. And since he doesn't really seem like he's doing much on the earth or anything per se on the planet, then he probably doesn't exist. Some people have gone that route. The other route you can go into is that, well, maybe God does exist, and maybe we are just so corrupt that there is a separation between God and us. And that's the other thought as well. So, but that's always a popular idea, right? That hey, God, why aren't you listening? Where are you? Again, people go in different routes. Again, some people will say there is no God. And then other people will think, well, maybe there's God, but the problem's not with God. Maybe the problem's with us. Well, the Bible tends to go with B, that it makes it very clear that something is wrong with us, that the problem is not with God, but we are abominable, and we are wretched, and we are blind, and we are in rebellion, and God is holy, and God separates himself from sin and from sinners. And so this is what the Bible teaches. Now, the Bible teaches that what Christ came to do is actually show God. When God seemed to be absent, even in the amongst the prophets of Israel, God seemed to be far away, distant. Where is he? Then Jesus shows up years later and says, "I've come to reveal the Father. He who has seen me has seen the Father." You think how radical it must have been to go from this idea that God is distant, where is God, to listening to the rabbi, from Galilee share that if you've seen him, you've seen the Father, for him and the Father are one. that he has come to reveal the Father, that he has come forth from the Father, and he has come to do the Father's will. And when you heard Jesus say things like, everything the Father does, that I do as the Son, what Jesus came to do is show the world that God, yeah, is hidden, the Father is hidden, but he has come to reveal, that the Son has come to reveal the Father, the true character of the Father, and to remedy this distance between a holy God and sinful human beings. So this is what Habakkuk understands. And I want you just to see how we can come to God and we could say to God, God, how long must I call for help before you will listen? You can say to God, I shout to you in vain. There is no answer. Man, is that radical? Do you get how powerful that is of a statement that Habakkuk says? He just says to God what is on his heart. And I love that. God, when am I going to see deliverance? God, when am I going to get healed? Where are you, God? You know, now us as Christians, man, we are on this side of the cross. We can look back and go, wow, we see that God has shown up and that God has done something to remedy our illness, our sickness. So for us on this side of the cross, it's really difficult for us to say God hasn't shown himself when he has given us his Son, right? Yeah, but nothing's wrong with us coming to God and expressing, being emotional, sharing with God our hearts, letting God know how we feel. And this is what Habakkuk does. Now he cries, help murder. I cry, but no one comes to save. Must I see forever, see these sins and sadness all around me? He sees injustice. He sees people doing criminal acts, but not being arrested for them. People that the justice system has fallen apart. People can go ahead and do whatever they want to do, and it's okay. It's okay for that. And he is bummed inside. So if you're bummed by things you see maybe in your world, hey, you know what? You're in good company. Habakkuk, you're like a prophet. You have a prophet's heart, right? You have a heart for the people, but you're burdened by the things that are going on in the society. Now, remember, the presuppositions in this book is that there is a God and that there is right or wrong. But if you're living in a culture that doesn't believe in God and that there is no objective right and wrong, then there's going to be social breakdown because everybody's living off of subjective preferences. What they believe to be right in a certain particular situation. And it can change based on who is the one in authority. There is no objective right or wrong. It's just subjective preferences. This is what I feel. This is what I think. Doesn't matter what is really true or not. It just depends on feeling. Well, Habakkuk is in that kind of world himself. And so you see a ideology clash going on in Habakkuk. And this is the tale of the world, is it not? And so Habakkuk goes on, wherever I look, there is oppression and bribery. Wherever he looks, whatever thing he looks into, he sees an oppression and he sees bribery. You get the idea that there is a economic bribery, an economic oppression that takes place, a love of money. The Bible teaches us in 2 Timothy chapter 3 that in the latter days, people, and it talks about this like future latter days, that people will be lovers of money, desiring it above all things. It doesn't matter who you oppress. It doesn't matter how you get the money. It's just that you're getting it. And this is how our world works, no doubt. We can look into all kinds of different ways of making money, and we can if we drill down deep enough into a lot of companies, we're going to find that there's places of oppression. There's maybe places of injustice that goes on, bribery that takes place. So he sees this kind of economic chaos and subjectivity going on and no justice. And he says, and people who love to argue and to fight, they love nothing more than to just to quarrel, get at one another, fight with one another, divide with one another, have contention with each other. They love that. They don't have a heart to really unify, or a heart to really love, or a heart to try to understand, or to sit down at the table and smile at one another, and not like that, but it's just a very argumentative attitude, a very hate-filled attitude. And this is what philosophies can do, is philosophies can breed an amazing amount of oppression and hate within human beings, where we don't like other people. We can look at them and go, oh my gosh, they believe that. Oh, and we are totally, we can literally have hate in our heart. Now, this is so different from Jesus that said, love your enemies, right? Love your enemies. Do good to those who spitefully use you. Great is your reward in heaven. And so he says, I am raising, and it says, let's see, here we go. Verse 4. For the law is not enforced, and there is no justice given in the courts. For the wicked far outnumber the righteous, and bribes and trickery prevail. The Lord replied, look, and be amazed. You will be astounded at what I am about to do. Very prophetic idea right there. There's something that's going to happen. So we see that we can live in a world of a massive injustice, all kinds of economic upheaval and bribery and oppression. And, we can tell God what we see. We can express that to the Lord. Always with the heart of, Lord, help us to love our enemies. And so it says, be amazed by this, for I am going to do something in your lifetime that you will, it says, have to see to believe. So something's going to happen in Habakkuk's life that seems like it's going to be an amazing thing. He's going to show himself. God's going to make himself, reveal himself. The idea of apocalypse, the unveiling. Have you ever heard that term, apocalypse? It just means the idea of that unveiling, right? The revealing, the revelation. God's going to do that. He's going to open up. This is what Jesus has come. He has revealed the Father. He is the revelation. And so when we see the last book of the Bible, what is it called? The revelation of Christ. It's a revealing of Christ. It's actually the time when really the ultimate fulfillment of Habakkuk happens, where the ultimate justice of God is fulfilled and the righteous kingdom has now come, so to speak. So it says, I am raising a new force in the world scene. So this amazing thing Habakkuk hears from God is that there's going to be an amazing thing that God's going to do. What is he going to do? He's going to raise up, it says, a new force in the world scene, the Babylonians, a cruel and violent nation who will march across the world and conquer it. They are notorious for their cruelty. They do as they like, and no one can interfere. Their horses are swifter than leopards. They are fierce people, more fierce than wolves at dusk. Their cavalry move proudly forward from a distant land. Like eagles, they come swooping down to pounce at their prey. By the way, I just saw some eagles, hawks? Like eagles or hawks, like cruising in my backyard, going after birds, man. It was amazing to watch them just swooping down. And it says, all opposition melts away before the terror of the presence. So what is it saying? Well, this is what Habakkuk sees. God says, hey, Habakkuk, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you something amazing. Now, what the amazing thing is the amazing power of military power of Babylon. I'm going to show you just how gnarly these guys are and their military power, their ability to come against Israel and take her. And this is what he's showing. Wow. Talk about, now you might go, well, why is that happening? Well, Israel has rebelled against God. They have turned away from God. They literally have moved God aside from the nation. And so what it's done is it's allowed for other people to come in because they've turned their backs on God. They no longer see things the way that they once saw them. They now have tried to buddy up with different neighbors and their countries near them, and it's not working well. There's all kinds of different issues that are going on. Their faith in God has fallen aside. New philosophies have come in. Different people shouting different things, wanting different things happening in the culture. And it's really just breaking down the society so much. And Babylon, who they thought were their buddies, are actually out to get them. Yikes. How sad, right? And that's kind of a bummer. Sometimes, we have to, in our own life, I think of, sometimes we have to, we have to just, I know when I gave my life to Jesus Christ, there was that time where I had to walk away from a lot of things, and it was, to be able to first of all just focus on Christ. But I also realized that there was a lot of things that, and I love my friends. I love them so much, even to this day. I think of them all the time. Every day, I think of my old friends, and I just have such wonderful, fond memories of so many things. But I knew there was a lot of things that I couldn't participate in. I didn't want to participate in, and I needed to move away from that. Well, this is kind of where we all are at times, where we have to move away from those things that are going to cause our destruction and get us not focused on what God says. And there's ultimate choices we have to make in life. Am I going to choose God as my authority, or am I going to listen to Babylon as my authority? Who is going to be my ultimate authority on life, on death, on right, or on wrong, on truth? What is going to be my authority? And Israel at this time was choosing other nations, looking to other nations, wanting to be like other nations, wanting to adopt their ways. And again, these other nations weren't friends really with Israel. They actually went right against Israel. Hey, Paula says she can so relate to this about moving away from friends. Yeah, and that's tough. And it's not that we don't love them. I love them, and you love them too, I'm sure. But we know that there's a new authority in our life. Well, Israel moves, has gone the opposite route, and they've tried to buddy up with the thing that will cause their destruction. And this is such a truth for sure in the morning Devo. And that is, God, am I buddying up to things that cause my ultimate, a breakdown in my relationship with you? Am I learning new philosophies? Am I allowing new philosophies to come into my life, educate me, that are causing me to move away from trusting in what you say? Do I look at God's word now as like, well, maybe God didn't really say that. Maybe Jesus didn't really mean that, because I am now budding up to a secular humanistic philosophy. Now, hopefully I'm driving this point home, because this is really important, not only for our personal lives, but also in our education, in our world. our education in our world is going, it will have a philosophy underlying the way it goes about teaching, the way it goes about educating people. And if everybody's going off of some philosophy, some ideology, and now the question is just what kind of ideology is being utilized to educate kids? And that's a good question. That is a really good question. What kind of philosophy? What kind of ideology? Is it a secular humanistic philosophy? Is it a theistic philosophy? But these things all have impacts. I was raised in a very secular humanistic education system, and what I got out of it is that I was just like a monkey. And as a monkey, do you go up to monkeys and say to them, like, you shouldn't do that? Do you go up to monkeys and do you say, hey, that's wrong sexual behavior? Or do you go up to monkeys and say, hey, you shouldn't hit that other monkey like that? No, monkeys just do what monkeys do. And we are just a little larger brained monkey. And so why would we even look to another human being and say to them, wrong? Like, why would we even think someone's wrong for having doing something, showing their being violent? Why would we say someone's wrong by being violent over another person? They're just big monkeys. And that's what secular humanistic thought kind of ran through my mind. That's how it kind of hit me, was like, if they can do it, then, why would anybody think wrong for us to do it? No one gets mad at a lion because it kills its cub. That's what it does. And so maybe that's what we do as human beings too. Why is there courts anyway? Why is there, you can see how philosophy breaks down society, right? It can really break down a society. It can break down a court system, all those things. So, but there's things in our personal life too that we can set things up before us that cause us to stumble, that cause us to fall. And we try to buddy up with those things and become friends with it. And when you're young, you try to buddy up, you fall into peer pressure and you try to buddy up with things. And even as you get older, you do the same thing. You try to buddy up with things as well that, everybody else is doing, so you try to do too. And the trick is we need to get our authority and our focus back on God. And that's what we're ultimately going to see, is that God is in control. And, he is, if we turn from him, he will he'll send something mighty. He'll show us just how incredible the enemy can be. And Israel was in this gullible moment of going, oh, the enemy's so amazing. Wow, they're our friends. They're so awesome, And God says, I'm going to show you something pretty radical. And that's really the full nature of the enemy. And so sometimes we have to see the full nature of the enemy, to really go, man, I need to work on this. And, and sometimes you got to see in a sense, the ramification of your fear, or the ramifications of your bitterness, or you see the results of your resentment that you've held on to forever. And you've seen how those things resulted in your life and how it's really messed up so many things. And then you finally realize that that fear and that bitterness and that resentment was not friends. Those things were enemies. And that now it's time to go to God and say, hey, God, you know what? I buddied up to these things. I buddied up to bitterness. I buddied up to envy. I buddied up to greed. I buddied up to lust. And now, Lord, I need to see it for what it is and come to you. That kind of attitude. So anyway, Jesus says, and family members can be included with friends where it can be toxic even though we love them, but hard to move away from them at times, in my opinion. Yeah, my opinion too. Very tough. Takes a lot of discernment and, a lot of prayer too. In our prayer closets, really seek the Lord, to have a good attitude with people, even to love our enemies, to be able to disagree in a loving way. And to be able to enter into dialogue too, if we need to talk to people and try to figure each other out, that kind of thing. Not compromising, our ideas or our thoughts, our presuppositions about God and about truth, just as I wouldn't expect them to um, deny their presuppositions of what they think as well. But, we want to go into everything with a lot of compassion and a lot of love in our heart. So, hey, I hope that the book of Habakkuk is going to be a good one. Wow, that was an amazing insight, Devo. A lot of interesting stuff there. But some of these books that seem really obscure are super powerful, like a bomb going off. So even though it might be the crispy portion of your book, of your Bible, Habakkuk, it's really an amazing book. So Habakkuk says, God, where are you, man? Things are going nuts. And God says, I'm going to show you some amazing stuff. And it's going to be radical. The people that you guys thought were awesome, they're not that awesome. I'm the only awesome. So, hey, you guys have a good one, okay? Take care. Tina, this is for you. Going out for you. Habakkuk. Paula, you have a great one. Tamora, hope you're doing good. Sometimes toxic family obligation. Yeah, sometimes, man. I'm not a big drama dude either. I don't do drama really well. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely try to. Y'all go in my room and play my guitar. That's what I did when I was a kid. If the family was getting toxic, I just went in my bedroom, shut the door, called a friend, put on my album, and played music. So, and then took out my guitar. So, but you guys have a great one, okay? You take care. Bye bye.